And now it is time to talk liberty with regular contributor, constitutional lawyer, and LibertyNation.com legal affairs editor Scott Cosenza. Hello, Scott.
Hello, Tim.
It's all New York all the time for this particular segment. I doubt we'll leave the Empire State before the segment is over, but let's dive right in with Governor Andrew Cuomo and his cronies and Trump tax returns. You've written about it. Tell us about it.
Well, nationally and now at the state level, the push for Democrats has been to get Donald Trump's tax returns out into the public eye. Their theory seems to be quite simply that Donald Trump has, through various legal means, and I want to stress that they're legal means, there's no allegation here that Trump has committed fraud or criminal tax evasions, but just that he has used every single possible loophole, pinhole, whatever, to pay as little tax as possible, and that once that true fact is revealed, if it is in fact a true fact, that the voters will be, ready with their pitchforks because they have to pay taxes and he doesn't. And so there's been this push ever since before the 2016 presidential election that Donald Trump needs to release his tax returns. Well, he's bucked it. He said no. He refuses to do so. They're now trying to do it at the state level. New York, so Cuomo obviously trying to get out of New York State and do something his father didn't do, which was move into the White House.
Right.
He's trying to get the New York State legislature to pass a law because the New York State tax return mimics the federal tax return, not in the sense of the necessarily the obligation owed, but in terms of the disclosures, Tim. So the law would say that the New York State taxing authorities can release to the appropriate congressional committee a New York State tax return. It's a bit convoluted, but here's how you have to think about it. Now that the Democrats control the House of Representatives, this is set up so that the appropriate person is a Democrat in the House of Representatives. They send the letter to the New York, if this legislation were to pass, they send the letter to the New York State taxing authorities, and then they send over the tax return, which of course will then be on CNN, I don't know, an hour after that. That's the attempt.
I don't get this idea that because he used every available legal loophole, quote unquote, in the tax law, that he's somehow a scofflaw. It leads to the question of, Scott, this guy's one of the richest guys in the world. He may be under audit, as he claims. He may not. He said he's been under audit, Donald Trump has, for 10 years, 12 years, 15. He says every year they audit me. If there were massive or even some irregularities in his tax returns, wouldn't the Internal Revenue Service have picked it up by now, Scott?
Definitely they would, and that's not what this is about. This isn't about irregularities. This is about promising an investigation into what may be an irregularity or may be revealing about collusion.
Like collusion.
Which, by the way, is not only just not accurate, but here's why it's a big lie, Tim. The president has to file, or candidates have to file as for federal office. As you, a former candidate for a federal office, United States Senator, know an exhaustive financial disclosure form detailing any corporation, partnership, LLC, you name it, that he may be involved in. Whereas a tax return just identifies taxable events and tax owed from those taxable events.
The bottom line of what you're saying is that you're going to learn maybe 10 times as much about someone's financial
underselling
life
in
a financial disclosure form for running for president than you are from any individual tax return.
More, Tim.
But the whole thing is just another attempt to gin something up against Trump. Yeah. Or am I wrong? Or is there any legitimacy to this?
It's even worse than that. They know that it's not there. In other words, anybody who says, any Democrat who says, and any media person who lets them say it unchallenged is somehow advancing the narrative that disclosure of the tax returns will somehow yield evidence of collusion or some impropriety like that.
Or obstruction of justice, don't forget that.
Right. It's not just unlikely. We're beyond the pale there. Because of what we know from the financial disclosures, we know that's a lie.